obviously we're still looking into this, is that he was checked against U.S. government databases multiple times prior to entering the country, and the U.S. government did not have any derogatory information about the individual in our systems at the time of entry. We're certainly looking back, as I referenced, at what occurred to learn every possible lesson we can to prevent attacks like this in the future.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki admitting earlier today that their protocols for keeping terrorists out of the U.S., well, clearly flawed. Joining me now, anti-terrorism advocate and author of The New Founders, Joe Connor. Also with us, national security and counterterrorism expert John Rosamondo. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have you both. Joe, Team Biden tried to claim the United States had no records on the Texas terrorist. But it wasn't like this guy was coming in from Syria or Yemen. He was a UK citizen with a long criminal record and an association with radicalized Islamic terrorists. My understanding is we have security agreements with our allies like the UK. We could have gotten the info if we had just asked. Is Team Biden blowing smoke to cover another screw up?
Well, of course. I mean, why should this border be any different than the southern border? Everyone's getting into this country. And look, the Biden administration has had terrorists in their possession before. The terrorists who murdered my father, for instance, were released by Obama and Biden back in 2017. So these guys, when they start talking about they're going to do everything they can to stop another terrorist attack, it's complete BS. They release terrorists for politics. It's all politics all the time, and they let people in. They don't vet them, and the narrative is that it's white supremacists. And they don't want to talk about who the real terrorist in this country is. And it's a disgrace. Yeah. It puts the American people at risk.
Yeah, and what do they care? It's not gonna hurt them and their families. They're protected by men with guns. It's just gonna hurt the American people. Hey, John, you wrote this piece on Newsmax.com where we're learning that the Texas terrorist belonged to Pakistani-based Islamic extremist group. As our borders are wide open, as Democrats all over the country enable criminals to harm Americans, do you think it's possible that Team Biden just looked at this terrorist and said, yeah, we want this kind of guy in the U.S.?
Well, I think there's a lot of issues in terms of information sharing between, we know MI5 had its eyes on this guy, and then in 2020 found nothing that it could charge him on. But, let's look here at going back to the Obama year. My friend Phil Haney was involved in an investigation of Tablighi Jamaat in the United States that was cut off due to a campaign by tens of millions of dollars by George Soros that got these Islamists together to get the Obama administration to end the surveillance of some of these extremists.
Well, I want to ask you both this question because it leads to right where I wanted to go. Under Joe Biden, criminals are in charge across mostly blue cities and states. One of the latest incidents occurred in the People's Republic of California. Disturbing photos and videos show scenes of a train track in Los Angeles. I think we're going to get that up there. Yeah, there we go. Train track in Los Angeles, ransacked, thousands of packages from UPS, FedEx, and elsewhere. John, you go first. So long as George Soros is running criminal policy in our government, are Americans safe?
Absolutely not. He's putting the most radical and extreme individuals in who are sympathetic to criminals. I mean, we're back to maybe where we were in the 1960s, 1970s, where you had radical prosecutors who were sympathetic to the criminals and, society is the problem and not dealing with crime.
Yeah, Joe, you want to take a swing at this? I mean, everywhere you go, every liberal state, every liberal city, you see criminals are in charge and getting away with it. What say you?
Well, it's no accident, right? I mean, we're seeing what we just saw in New York the other day where a woman was pushed in front of a subway. We have a prosecutor in Manhattan who says that he's not going to prosecute armed robbery, where he used to go to prison for 20 years for that. They take the power. There is no power in the prosecutor to decide which laws he's going to enforce. So it's up to we, the people, it's up to our legislatures to do something, to stand up and say this is not right and get rid of these people. It's over to be able to sit back and let this stuff continue to happen. And like I said before, I've been through it. My father was murdered by terrorists, and they were released by the Clintons and Obama for politics. And that's what we're seeing all the time. I mean, I testified, you mentioned before that it doesn't affect the Congress. I testified at Eric Holder's confirmation hearing, and I watched those Leahys of the world literally look down on the people testifying I was a pathetic waif, because he knew that his family wasn't going to be affected. It was our family, and it was the American people that he swore to protect, that we're expendable. That's their view.
I know. You know what, guys? You know what I really like to know? I'd like to know what the dollar figure is. How much did George Soros pay the Socialist Democrat Party to sacrifice us all to terrorists and criminals? I'd like to know what the dollar figure is. John Rosamondo and Joseph Connor, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.